Good job. Five yeses is wild, guys. Wow, 5 yeses. I'm going to go 6 yes. I say yes, too. All right, we're going to keep going. We got 3 panels left and a talk. I know everyone's getting a little tired, so if you got to stretch your legs real quick, feel free to do so. I'm super excited about this next panel. It's all about comparing New York and New Jersey, which naturally is happening anyways, and we've seen it from Sai's presentation earlier today. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome our next moderator, Lauren Laplante. Lauren, come on up here. Give her a round of applause and let's get this energy up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Get ready to learn, as we have a panel that's packed with experience here. Just get everybody settled. I'll sit on the end. No, on the end. Let's make sure everyone has a microphone. All right. So before I sit down, just set the stage, literally, for our panel here. So New York and New Jersey legalized adult cannabis use around the same time in early 2021. Now, in typical New York fashion, New York moved fast, had more multiple types of licenses. They had rapid retail expansion. They had speed, complexity, and also friction. Conversely, in New Jersey, they had taken a more controlled approach. Fewer license classes, tighter compliances, and strong municipal influence. They were a little bit slower, more predictable, and disciplined. So now as these markets have matured, how are they influencing each other? So our panel here will talk about that. And in our panel right now, we have folks who represent brands, retail, culture, data, and a lot of experience. So I'm going to introduce everyone here, and I have to say that I am very impressed with each one of you gentlemen here. I'm going to give my little elevator speech for each of you. So we have David Vautrin. There. Dave is the CEO of FLUENT Cannabis and has been building and scaling cannabis businesses for nearly a decade. He got his start launching U.S. operations for Canna Royalty in California, then later helped grow the travel agency into New York's top cannabis retail brand by revenue. All right, and then we have Jeremy Rivera. Jeremy is the president and the Cannabis Retail Alliance of New York. He's the president of the Cannabis Retail Alliance of New York and the co-founder and CEO of Terp Brothers, the first licensed adult use dispensary in Astoria, Queens. His perspective comes from being both on the ground and at the policy table. And we have Jeff Freeman Jr. Jeff is co-founder of Mfused and the Superfog vape brand, one of the most successful independent cannabis brands in the country. He's a true product innovator, having designed and sold nearly 15 million devices and generated close to $500 million in retail sales, and totally bootstrapped. Then we have Keshawn Warner. Keshawn is partner and CTO of Dazed Cannabis Dispensaries and the Dazed product brand line. He leads the technology and systems behind a fast-growing retail operation that process over 400,000 transactions and more than $25 million in revenue. And we have Jason Starr. Jason is Chief Impact Officer and Counsel at the Revel, where he brings together cannabis operators, community leaders, and advocates through high-impact, inclusive experiences. He's a civil rights attorney and former senior government counsel who helped shape New York State's cannabis law. Myself, my name is Lauren Laplante. I am the Chief Growth Officer at Spokes Digital. We're a cannabis performance marketing agency, and we also have innovative solutions. I work closely with dispensaries, brands, and e-commerce companies to unlock growth for them through these digital channels as well as emerging technology. So here's our esteemed panel. I'm going to start off with, I feel like standing. We're going to start off with just overall, from where you are today, where are New York and New Jersey most directly influencing each other? Maybe it would be consumers, operations, capital, or regulation. So, Dave, would you like to start with that?
Sure. For starters, I'm a New Yorker, so I apologize to everybody from New Jersey. But I've been studying up and trying to learn a lot about New Jersey, and I've been thinking a lot about these questions in advance, and I try to give as thoughtful responses as possible. So, what do I see is and how it's influencing it? I put some notes down on this one, but I sense it's bi-directional. I see that we're swapping SOPs, models, discipline, storytelling, cultural relevance, marketing instincts, and then and I think that the best-in-class operators are standardizing across both states. Maybe New York has significantly more brands, right? Over 700 brands in New York. So maybe they have a leg up on that. But that, of course, as we know, I see some great brands in the room here, and 700 plus brands is a double-edged sword. So I think my answer on that was just bi-directional swapping.
Jeremy?
Well, New York and New Jersey have always been very interconnected, right? Everybody from New York City travels to Jersey. When we were in our legacy days, a lot of the New Jersey legacy operators were purchasing cannabis from New York City and vice versa. So right now, as I see as an operator in New York, a lot of us are trying to take our small mom and pop businesses and see opportunities in Jersey and expand and scale into a state that's very close. I can drive from my house in Queens to Jersey City. I can drive from my house in Queens to so many parts of New Jersey that for us, our easiest ability to scale is with our neighbor. So we're able to take our brands and our social media influences and our customer bases that a lot of it is coming from New Jersey too because of the transient community that lives in New Jersey and is also traveling to New York City. So we're able to take that data and see how we're responding with these communities and maybe scale and open up our businesses, for me, a retail, for Jeff, his brand, in the New Jersey market and see how it fares. So I think New Jersey and New York will always be interconnected in that way. And for small operators like myself, it's an easier look for us to go right across the bridge than to maybe hop on a plane and go to another state, go to California, Washington, Arizona.
Or even Buffalo.
Well, yeah, Buffalo, right?
Yeah. I think for New Jersey, it's more equitable for the folks here than it was in New York. I think New York had a terrible time lifting and standing up the market, both with regulation, just outside influence, political influence. And so I feel like there was a better opportunity here locally in New Jersey. And then to your point, from my standpoint as a brand, as a product innovator, we think more in terms of systems, process, like data and product, not just the actual cannabis product. And those things are built to scale, and it helps me by having a sort of a Northeast footprint because you get spillover from brand credibility, consumer trust, and then the things that we do to help retail operators that we discussed outside around management of their profit, their velocity, creating negative conversion cycles on their cash flow. These are things that proven operators can bring to the table that, startup companies really can't. So I think the brand credibility is there, but the industry is very similar. I just actually think New Jersey's been a better market for the folks from New Jersey.
Right. I agree with what they just said. As a New Yorker and, having a product and a brand in New York, there's when you have a product, there's a basic premise. You know, your home is your backyard, and your backyard is your proving ground for what you're trying to bring to market in your locale. And if you can own your backyard, then naturally you want to extend beyond your backyard and move and test out another market. And in the tri-state in New York, we have New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So naturally, you're either going to go north or you're going to go south to bring your next proving ground. And New Jersey for us is just another market, like my man Jeremy said, is similar to New York, where you have a customer base that flows in between New York and New Jersey for commuting, working purposes and stuff like that. So on the retail level, you know, at Dazed, we looked at, we established our footprint in New York. We're growing in New York. So what's the next natural bastion to go and bring your brand would be New Jersey. And then at that point is to learn now, take some lessons that you learn from the New York market, adapt and see how it adapts in the New Jersey market, see what falls out, you know, reconvene, restructure, and then, you know, attack what works in your New Jersey market.
And you're doing that right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we opened in Somerset, New Jersey 3 months ago, and thank you very much. Thank you. And so with that, you know, we're taking what we've learned in the big city, which, you know, we all know is very convoluted. You know, you have to be you have to establish your brand to stand out in a crowded market. So we're trying to take those lessons learned and now see how it translates in the New Jersey market. But then again, New Jersey is so different for, you know, a variety of reasons, mainly depending on what location you choose to establish yourself. Our first location is in Somerset, New Jersey, which is kind of a crowded market, so it's similar to New York. So for us as a retailer now, what that means is, you know, we come from a crowded market in New York to a somewhat crowded market in our locale, New Jersey. What lessons from New York are going to work in New Jersey? What won't, you know, and what falls out, and then, you know, restructure for New Jersey area.
Well, I look forward to hearing that from you. Yeah. Jason, would you like to add anything?
Ditto. But I will say one thing that actually, do you mind if I just take a temperature? How many people in here are like on the brand side? The retail side? Investment. How many people don't know where they are right now? That's fine too. You know, sometimes you just wander and find interesting things. So one place where there's not the relationship and interdependence that reflects like actual consumer behavior, actual brand behavior, is in regulation. Believe me, the New York regulators are like heads down, like we have enough shit to deal with and that we can't actually deal with. In reality, what should be happening is there should be, just like there is bi-directional customers and brands, there also needs to be bi-directional regulation. Because what, you know, is not necessarily happening right now as between Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York, is that the sort of regulatory environment and the way that regulations were shaped in the beginning, and certainly any regulatory developments that have happened and will continue to happen aren't necessarily done with that real interdependence and interrelatability in mind. I think there's opportunity for operators across the two states and frankly also into Connecticut to really start to think collectively about how do the regulatory environments across those three states actually start to mirror and serve the way that customers are moving and products are moving in the region.
That was really good. That was good.
Thank you. How's everybody doing in here? Wake up. All right, I know it's the afternoon. They got free coffee outside. Y'all didn't see? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. It's great, that energy. So this is kind of a corollary to some of the points that these gentlemen made here. So consumer behaviors, what do you see might be crossing the border, New York, New Jersey, directionally, and which market might be moving faster in terms of consumer behavior and adoption?
I personally think the New York market is moving a little faster, right? The New Jersey market has been open longer than the New York market, but we've been able to open more doors in the New York market faster. It's a double-edged sword, right? And what I have found in talking to my other retailers, because I am the president of a Cannabis Retail Alliance of New York, so we have multiple dispensaries that are open currently under the alliance. Some of our retail partners that are closer to Jersey are targeting consumers with marketing in the Jersey region. So people that are in Rockland by the Palisades are now using advertisements to target New Jersey consumers to cross the bridge. I myself have a pixel on my website where we're able to identify, consumers that are shopping or using the website. And we do see a lot of traction from New Jersey consumers looking on our website because our product selection is a lot better. And not to take anything away from the New Jersey market, but we do see a lot of smaller operators, some more mom and pop operators, being able to get to scale easier in New York. So with the consumer patterns, it's a little back and forth, right? I've been hearing a lot of my New York brethren and sisters taking their ideas in New York on the retail side and trying to expand it, like I said, in New Jersey. But I've also found that New York born and bred operators are also taking their brands, right, and trying to translate them across the bridge into the New Jersey market. And again, it's so close and so similar, even though they have their own specific identifying factors. But consumers are consumers. They want good weed. They want to smoke fire rosin, right? They want good pre-rolls without stems and shake. And the New York market has the ability to grow these smaller, more niche, micro brands, right? And hopefully scale them and translate them over to the market in New Jersey.
I see it similar and different. So from my lens, what I see is every market is specific to the supply chain in market, the maturity of the market, taxation. But the things that are consistent are average order values, transactional rates, what is the ratio of that to their income, so that way people can buy things. And so our strategy is to create conflict at the point of retail. Right, so that means create exceptional value at the price band that's going to sell the most product, that's going to spin up and make profit for the stores, and is going to move large volumes so that I can work upstream to pass on my savings. And so what I think you're seeing in these markets are consistent price points and or folks that are willing to sort of travel, as well as things like incentive-based sales. I think that's so critical. The products and the brands are almost secondary to the economics of the market while it's emerging. I know that's tough because you want your local scene, you want everything to be hyper-localized, you want your ability to participate in an industry that we deserve and so righteously belong in, but you've been blocked out of. But the reality is a lot of times you got to create good business. So you're seeing consumer patterns in terms of the evolution of the product availability. Early market, while price is higher, people tend to redistribute that value back into the brand, activations, making better products. But then as the product scales, as the market scales, regulation shifts, you have to put your money where your investment center is, that's driving profitability and sustainability. And there is no equity in any industry without sustainability and profitability. And so you got to find a way to do both. Just from a consumer standpoint, driving back and forth the proxy, that's one thing. But this is, again, where I feel like brand confidence, brand continuity, strong solutions are in place. But then really putting and fighting for, I think, hyper-localized shelf space to be earmarked specifically for those local brands, because customers are going to purchase based off of what they can afford.
I find this very interesting because now I'm thinking if I'm a New Jersey retailer and there's a tax advantage to the consumer in Jersey, up to 8%, depending on the municipality between New Jersey and New York, I think I'd be putting pixels on my New Jersey retailer site and be targeting New Yorkers, because I look at the price of the eighth and they're pretty flat. There's not a material difference between an eighth in New Jersey and eighth in New York, based on the last data from both Headset as well as Lit Alerts, which is data I use often. So what are your thoughts on that as far as it's less expensive to buy it in Jersey?
It's less expensive, but a lot of the brands are dominated by the multi-state operators, and I think you get a lot more uniqueness in New York, and I think people are driving towards the cultured products, right? People want the more crafted culture products when it comes into the community. I think a lot of the consumers are that way. And just like, the tax might be different and the consumer may be saving a lot more money or a little bit more money, right? But they're also getting the same old products. I think they get different variations and more ability to shop with other products that they want to see grow in New York, because we have that ability, and with the micro business licenses, right, we have that ability to grow these niche small batch products and really drive them.
I think the other P related there is proximity, which, now, I can go down the block and go and shop in the legal retail environment. I'm getting all those upsides of, having a bud tender, having product diversity. And so I think proximity is also important to the consumer, particularly in New York, where we are so used to, everything being downstairs, for lack of a better term.
That's New York. People love proximity in New York, but in New Jersey, I think people are more easier to travel, right? People are traveling on the PATH train. They're coming and then walking in the New York City streets.
Or they're driving on the highway.
Or they're driving on the highway. They're coming out to restaurants in Queens and Brooklyn and Manhattan. They're going to clubs and restaurants, right? So when they're out here, they're like, whoa, I got a better product selection than I have in New Jersey. I've been hearing about this small brand or this small legacy grower that's finally come to the legal market, and I want to try it. We had it with a brand called Black Rabbit, right? It was a legacy grower who had a micro license converted to the New York market. We brought his product in, and we've seen migration from all the way upstate New Jersey and Connecticut coming to our store to purchase the product, right? Because it was unique, it was niche, it was different. It wasn't that MSO style regular that every state has. You go from California to Arizona to Florida, New York, New Jersey, it's all the same, right? People want to shop different sometimes. And that's not the whole market, but it is a portion of the market that drives consumers from New Jersey to want to travel, even though they have to maybe pay a little bit more money.
Yeah, and I always talk about, like, if you sell on price, you lose on price. So I think the most important part here is not only price is an element, but proximity is important. But we've heard on so many of these panels today about education and training and, like, the use of seed talent. I think that's the magic behind creating a moat around your business and protecting it, and then working with, like, large brands. I know, like, Rove, for example, they have a loyalty program that crosses all states. So, working with those key brands and then getting those unique ones. But education is absolutely key on this one.
Education is important everywhere in this industry. Keshawn, do you want to add anything? Or?
No, I think these guys, expressed it eloquently, so I'm reserved today.
Thank you. Now we'll talk a little bit about operations here. What operational lessons has New York learned from New Jersey and vice versa? So
many of you know I was part of starting up the travel agency in New York City. It's currently the number one brand in New York City. And we frankly took our talent from New Jersey. We brought in a retail leader and brought with him his SOPs and his execution expertise. So for me, I think those are the type of things that we imported into New York from New Jersey.
Yeah, no, I do agree on that. Because New Jersey had a leg ahead of New York and coming into the game faster, we were able to utilize a lot of the workforce that was already experienced in New Jersey. And like Dave said, bring them over to our retail or to our grows or whatever part of the industry that we're in, whatever part of the chain we're in, and use that expertise. So I do agree on that, because I do have currently 2 bud tenders that are traveling from New Jersey to Queens, New York, to work in Terp Rose.
Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah.
I travel that far to work for Terp Rose too.
Hey, thank you.
That place is awesome.
All right, let's talk a little bit about regulation. When you look at regulation, where does New York tend to lead and set the tone, and where does New Jersey bring in, quietly a workable, predictable model?
Again, I'll start with this real quick, only because Keshawn and I both are justice-involved licensees, and New York was so far different than so many other states by prioritizing people that were marginalized and were justice-involved. Giving people that were justice-involved and directly affected by the war on drugs the opportunity to transition into the industry as first movers was the biggest part of the regulation that I feel that every state should take from. Right, this is a part where we're able to give back to people that were affected by, these outdated prohibition laws and these draconian laws that were affecting and harming us so much. So, Keshawn, sorry, bud.
It's good, brother. I agree. I like that they added that portion to their rollout, because it's very important, because historically and traditionally, the illicit market was the market that created and propped up the cannabis market until it got on board above ground in the legal market. And so I appreciate that they did that. What I still a little wary about that I started reading the regulations as I'm getting acclimated into the New Jersey market is the fact that, there is a cannabis social equity tax that they're building a slush fund for that, you would think that would go back into reinvestment into social equity works, into the development of the neighborhoods that were impacted on, by the war on drugs, better roads, infrastructure and stuff like that. But as I started to read the regulations, what I read said that this slush fund doesn't go back to community redevelopment. It just goes into an enforcement bucket, which is kind of like the adverse of, what the social equity program, in my opinion, was supposed to be, founded off of. So, I think they, like many states like Massachusetts and stuff like that, they came out with a great social equity portion, but how does that really affect, the social equity environment on the ground level? And I think there's still a little bit that left.
Doesn't truly impact.
Doesn't truly impact. Whereas on the New York side, they came out with, the establishment of the card fund that we was able to benefit from. And me personally, I was able to benefit from the money that was raised ahead of time to open up and build out dispensaries. But, in the regulations and the rollouts and the lawsuits that we saw started to happen afterwards, it didn't really have the global effect, positive effect that it could have had, if rolled out appropriately. So I think the regulations could have been rolled out. There were a lot of good examples ahead of time in other states that came out with a social equity program that New York and or New Jersey could have leaned on. Yeah. Again, taking the best parts, adjusted it to the environment, and roll out that will really, truly, have a net positive effect on the cannabis industry as a whole, especially the social equity aspect.
I will say, though, if you look at New York and New Jersey together, and New York and New Jersey did have the most robust intention around, social equity, then you see collectively the two states in terms of ownership in the market far and away exceed every other state combined when you talk about women, formerly incarcerated people, service-disabled veterans, and black and brown people who've been most impacted by the war on drugs. So I think that was a policy success insofar as we have seen those outcomes. But I do think that in New York, we sacrifice regulatory clarity for regulatory confusion in order to accomplish some of those things, especially on the front end. And it did seem to me like, that gave New Jersey a bit of a head start when it came to sort of predictability and clarity, both on the regulation and the licensing. So I'm interested to see now that, again, we're going back to the table as an industry in both states and sort of saying, okay, now with the understandings, learnings, development that has happened now, what do we need to change or tweak, or what did we get wrong? What do we need to reconsider? And what will those conversations be like in both states? And, back to my earlier point, to what extent does the regional cannabis community, consumers, operators, stakeholders, drive those conversations that are happening in Trenton and in Albany with the same kind of, objective and intent as it relates to thinking about our markets as related and regional.
Yeah, great point.
Thank you.
To Keshawn, 13% of our sales tax is supposed to be reallocated towards the communities that the dispensaries are in. And a big regulatory difference with what's going on in New York and New Jersey is we don't need approval from our municipality. We just need to make the municipality aware that we're coming to the area. In New Jersey, which allows a lot more red tape, is the municipality has to allow and has say over whether the dispensary is allowed to open. And that's a vast, big difference in regulatory between New York and New Jersey, because now we're putting the interests of the elected officials in those municipalities to judge whether how many dispensaries or even which dispensaries they want to allow in their communities. And I believe that creates a huge bias in the type or the ownerships of the dispensaries that are happening in certain municipalities in New Jersey.
Yeah. All right, now we're going to move to brand operators and their offerings. and I'll tag Jeff on this one initially. Do you see a stronger brand gravity forming in New York or New Jersey?
I think it's, I guess I'll call it legacy-based, independent operational-based, or if you're looking for something that's consistent. So there's vastly different products within a store. There's small batch craft, there's hand-touched, and you have pride and a sense of honor of what you've created. Then there are commercial, more traditional CPG-style products that sort of move at a velocity. And so if you look at sort of a traditional commercial environment, a gas station, a liquor store, there's the products that are their bread and butters, and then they're, depending upon their local economics, they carry different products at different tiers. And so I think from a brand standpoint, that information drives our product development, which drives the focus of our customer and our attention. We're seeing a lot more stickiness, I think, early on in New Jersey around the localized brands. But I think long-term, the ability to engage directly within the community and have like real experiences and have real continuity. And I just think the relentlessness of the operators in New York as well as New Jersey, they're going to demand that there's a local presence. And that's inevitably going to glean more towards craft, small batch products. And so where I offer more of a commercial product that is more of a high velocity, high volume. It's like I said, it's the profit center for your store. It's what keeps the lights on. The areas that I can always invest into are hyper-localized things, collaboration, artist collabs, showcasing people. But beyond that, I think you're seeing both markets are sticky. New York is sticky more towards brands. I think New Jersey is actually focused more towards the actual product itself, the quality of the product itself. Even more so than maybe New York, because I think they get a little disillusioned by the bright lights and excited about how much money you're putting in front of them from marketing versus the product.
So what I'm seeing between New York and New Jersey is New York is heavy branded, right? Your brand speaks for you. You know, the Yankees, the Knicks, the Mets, everything is a brand. They may perform well, they may perform trash for the year, but the brand is everything. If you keep your brand exposure, I think that's the winning goal in New York. I think that's trying to translate over into New Jersey because you have a lot of brands in New York who, jumped into New Jersey market early to, establish themselves and to show who they are in the market. I think that's starting to translate because we chose when we first opened our store in Somerset, New Jersey, and we started to look at certain brands that carry in in New Jersey, initially, without having any major thought or experience in the New Jersey market, we looked at what brands were successful in New York, what brands had a footprint in New York, and were actively doing major branding and work to establish their footprint in New York. And now we're trying to take that brand and extrapolate that over to the New Jersey market ahead of time and starting to get their footprint in early. So that way we can bring them in. We know they have a market share in New York. They have a proven success story in New York, and hopefully that translates into the New Jersey market where we have, as a brand and a branding partner, we have a built-in relationship that, listen, we're going to bring you into into the New Jersey market. We've already recognized that you're starting to build your market share in New Jersey. So for metrics purposes, it makes sense to bring brands in that we have a relationship with that's already trending in a positive position, positive direction. And so with the cross between New York and New Jersey and people going back and forth between New York and New Jersey, we're hoping that early on that, people who are coming and may purchase in New York and already have a brand they're specific to, a product that they're specific to, that they like a lot, that translates into the New Jersey market to help prop up our baseline as, local New Jersey brands that we're beginning to become experienced with are also doing the same thing and building themselves and establishing themselves or have already been established in New Jersey. And now we need to add them to our, offerings because now that's going to create our baseline for success. And there is a cross between the educated market in New Jersey who goes back and forth to New York and a brand new New Jersey customer to ours who may not have any experience with New York at all, but now our bud tenders in our New Jersey market, in our store, we've trained them to, our successful brands, which are more visible, and now they learn how to understand and break down what the metrics that make a brand successful and take that into what we consider a upcoming or not so well-established brand in New Jersey and give them that same type of attention and give them that same position and buying power within our store, which we hope now they will, at some point, what we're thinking is the New Jersey brands will do the same thing, establish themselves here in New Jersey and start at some point make the crossover and the transition to New York, which for us now creates that circle of customer base that can find New Jersey brands that they love that may be in New York and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just a quick comment on that for the retailers in the audience. We talk a lot about brands. Most of them are just labels. They're not actually doing the work. They're not doing the training. They're not doing the activation. So just when I think about brands like your brand right there, you actually get in the marketplace, you build it, you build the loyalty. So a lot of loose talk about brands, but I would say out of the 700 quote unquote brands in New York, there's maybe 200 real ones that are doing the work, and the rest won't survive. So just a quick note on branding.
Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left here. We want to wrap it up with a look at the future. In 1 year from now, do you see New York, New Jersey, we're merging into one market, or do you see New York and New Jersey being still interconnected market that's shaping each other? I'll start with Dave and go down the line.
Okay. From my perspective, they're going to be interdependent. And so prior to this, I pulled up some numbers here. But I think a year from now, if not sooner, I see New York, New Jersey coming together much closer. Collectively, they will exceed the revenue of California, in my opinion, a year from now. And just to level set from content and context standpoint, New York's already at 170 million on a monthly clip. New Jersey's at 100 million. That's already bigger than the number 2 state in the U.S., which is Michigan. So for me, I see them interdependent, and New York and New Jersey, as they exist today, really coming together.
Yeah, to my earlier comment, New Jersey and New York are very symbiotic, right? We have people that are living in New Jersey that are traveling to New York. We have people that are living in New York traveling to Jersey. So within the next year, yes, I do see some more merging, but I do honestly feel that independently, New Jersey is going to create its own footprint in the supply chain itself. New Jersey has its own identity. New Jersey has its own cannabis culture. And if we're able to stimulate these individuals into building these brands, into building retail and all the way up in the supply chain, I can see New Jersey standing on its own 2 feet. Yes, symbiotically working with New York and helping the economy and becoming, the biggest in the country. But I truly feel New Jersey has its own legs to stand on. The identities of the individuals in the New Jersey culture have their own legs to stand on, and we should be working to flourish those people.
So I grew up in really tough times, and so I had a tendency to just look at what's next and not what's beyond that. And so I want to answer the question in 1 year and 5 year increments. In 1 year, I think you're going to see the markets consolidate and feel as one market. As an operator, I can share resources like I would in any traditional business. That's marketing, sales folks, operational folks, by having a centralized place. This is the first time you have 2 really, really huge cities right next to each other, right? California, you have NorCal, SoCal. That's 2 states, right? Michigan, and then you got all the crazy shit around there, right? And so I think you're going to see one primary market. And then 5 years from now, you look at more like the end of prohibition, alcohol, and you start thinking about sales, distribution, manufacturing centers. And if we're not looking at that thing, you're only creating a business for the next 1 to 2 year ratio. And the reason why I said my life is because you grew up with PTSD when you're financially struggling. You can't look around the corner. Right? And so if you're investing in building an enterprise or a business that's going to run off the waterfall in 2 or 3 years from now, you're not building for the future. Right? So there's the 1 year of consolidation, then there's a 3 to 5 year when you're actually working with other groups, and there is an interstate scenario that will happen, and these supply chains will be intertwined. And that's when you'll start to see the emergence of true East Coast representation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what's going to happen is, like you said, there's going to be a balloon where you're going to have a lot of brand presence from the New York local market and the New Jersey local market, and everybody's going to try to, create their crowd share in the market, but then it's going to be a hyper consolidation where you're going to have the strongest brands, retail and product-wise, are going to be able to sustain the weather. And what I think is going to happen is New York and New Jersey will be able to benefit off of each other as far as like your normal shopping experience, right? So New Yorkers on the weekends, we go to Jersey to go to IKEA to go shopping, your big bulk type of stuff. So while I'm in New Jersey going to American Mall, American Dream Mall, or I'm going to go snowboarding, or I'm going to go shopping, whatever the case may be, or if I'm going to Atlantic City, I know there are brands and stores that I can go to and shop at that I'm used to and accustomed to that I like in New York. But then I can also see, or the customer can see what's different in that local market and get acclimated with something different. And vice versa, people from New Jersey will be coming to New York to go to a Yankees game, Mets game, Knicks game, Barclays Center, and when they come in, I know I can get what I normally get from New Jersey at these locations, Terp Bros, Dazed, and different places in the city. And I think we will have that cross-border natural business commerce as New York and New Jersey traditionally shares industries and commerce. So I think that's going to happen for the cannabis industry soon.
I agree with that. I grew up in North Jersey, so I know exactly that experience. Jason?
Yeah, no, I mean, these guys have said it all, right? I mean, there's nothing really new under the sun here. New York and New Jersey have been related, from time immemorial, and people and things have moved across that imaginary state line, for all of our history and histories before that. And so I think, I'm like Jeff, when you said in the future and then you said 1 year, I was like, man, 1 year is a whisper. We'll probably be having this same conversation a year from now, to be honest with you, because things take time. How do we increase the addressable consumer base, which is in everyone's interest here, right? So back to consumer education, continuing to find those places where there's shared interests, so that both of our individual states' industries can grow, and the people, the stakeholders, the operators, and ancillary businesses that keep the train running can continue to do things that lower their cost of operation and help build towards operational longevity. We're on the Revel. We've been around for 10 years, and a lot of times what we say is just survival is success. So I do think we're still in that place where how are we looking at each other across these state lines, understanding where it's important that we retain our individuality and differences, and then where are those places that we can find synergy to move both of our industries forward.
Yeah, and just to your point earlier, New York will always have like Billy Joel, and New Jersey will always have Bruce, so they'll be different. But it's not winner take all, so it's everyone's going to work together. It's all going to work out.
Who are these people?
Oh God, Shabazz, get him off the stage. These are two young men, both born in 1949.
I got you.
They both had their big breakouts in 1970. Actually, data point, they're both very successful. Billy Joel is more famous globally, but Bruce has deeper fan base. But to the point for New Jersey folks, Bruce Springsteen has 3 times the net worth as Billy Joel, so shout out Jersey.
Well, thank you, everyone, for sitting in. I hope you learned something today. Thank you, too.
All right, they say that you always